Good afternoon and welcome to Dialogue with Deidre. I'm your host, Deidre Malone. I am so excited to have Jessica Van Dyke on my show. I have been trying to get Jessica on my show for at least 6 months. She's doing incredible work with the Tennessee Innocence Project. She's the executive director and lead counsel for the organization. Jessica, welcome to Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you. We finally made this happen.
I know. We've been talking about it for a minute.
We
but
have.
You've been busy.
We have, but things are slowing down. And the most exciting part of the being busy is the being in Memphis officially part.
I know. I'm so
which
excited.
Is really great.
So, maybe about a month, 2 months ago, the office officially opened?
September 14th. Yeah.
It goes by so fast. But I know that is something that you wanted to do since really starting the Tennessee Innocence Project, because a lot of your applications are coming from this part of the state, right?
Absolutely. And I think we started working together maybe a year and a half ago. Yes. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
And that happened because we knew Memphis was such a top priority for us. There had been a legal clinic at the University of Tennessee College of Law in Knoxville, but they had not done any work in Memphis. And, we were just seeing so many applications, so many calls and cries for help that it felt really important to us. Okay, we need to start in Nashville. We need to start centrally, but eventually we needed to be in Memphis. And we wanted to be in Memphis, and we're really glad to be here.
So glad to be here. It was a beautiful grand opening of the space. Great turnout, music incredible, but the most important thing was West Tennessee really got an opportunity to know that you're here, you're grounded in Memphis, but to learn more about the work, right?
Right.
So talk to us about 5 years ago, how did the Tennessee Innocence Project start?
So there were a group of attorneys and really decided this needs to become not a part of the legal clinic, it needs to be a full-time organization. And someone has to be really working these cases, and it needs resources. So just as a tiny bit of background, and not to get too bogged down in the legal, but if you are convicted of a crime in Tennessee and you go through your direct appeal, so you go through the first process, which is really just looking at, was the trial okay? Were there any errors? But after that, when you really start looking at, is there new evidence of innocence? Did my attorney do everything right? Did the judge do everything right? When you really do that deep dive analysis on the case, you're probably going to receive an appointed attorney. It's not guaranteed that you would get one, but if you do, they're only going to be paid $1,000. So someone might work on your case 2, 3, 4 years, and they would get paid $1,000.
Oh, my goodness.
They're not going to get funding for experts. They're not going to get funding for investigation. And it's just impossible to prove someone's innocence with limited resources. So 5 years ago, it was very clear to us, we have to start this organization. And, a group of really incredible people came together and did it. I was the first employee, and now we have 9.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing. Where do we stand in terms of, because I know there are innocence projects across the country. Where do we stand in terms of when we started? We were do you remember, Jessica? How many?
We were one of the last states
really
to have an innocence organization.
Okay.
That was a full-time, really dedicated. There were a few other states that didn't have coverage, but we just didn't have anything. We have grown by leaps and bounds, yes. And now that we have 5 full-time attorneys, and then I'm an attorney, but I also do a lot of other things. We can work more cases. We can go through those applications because we've had 700 people write us asking for help since we opened our intake.
700 people, which means if you had to estimate how many people are wrongfully incarcerated in the state of Tennessee, what would be a good estimate?
So there's various studies about wrongful convictions, but an estimate is 1 to 3%.
Wow.
So let's just assume the system gets it right most of the time, but not all the time. So if you think about 1%, at any given time in Tennessee, there are about 25 to 30,000 people serving a felony sentence. That could be behind bars, it could be on community corrections, whatever it is. So, those are just the people at that time. That does include people who maybe served a sentence and got out. That would be like Miss Joyce,
Yes.
who got out and then later got relief. So, 1% of anything is too much if you're an innocent person behind bars.
And I can't even imagine when we think about Miss Joyce's story, or Charlie or Claude or Wayne, and we'll talk about artists a little bit, but we're repping today,
Yes.
okay, because you too can have a T-shirt if you go to the Tennessee Innocence Project website and order one, right?
Definitely. And the thing that I love about this is these shirts focus on the client. They focus on the person because they're the people that are really the heroes in this. Joyce spent 27 years behind bars for a crime she didn't commit.
Can't even imagine.
Charlie, 27 years. Claude, 30 years in prison. Wayne, almost 25 years in prison. Artist has been in since January of 2003.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, can you imagine 27, 30 years of your life? You're locked up with access to really not much of anything. Sometimes family may come to visit you. Sometimes you may never see family. I can't even imagine.
For some folks, it takes away their ability to have families of their own.
Yeah.
It takes away their ability to see their families grow, to see their children grow and evolve as people. COVID was a weird time for all of us because suddenly graduations were canceled. Yeah. Birthday parties were canceled. You could only do things occasionally and with a few people, right? But that is what being in prison is like for an innocent person all the time. Yeah. All of those special events canceled.
So I had an opportunity to visit in Nashville last week at your big event, your big fundraiser. And we want to mention that,
And thank you for sponsoring, by the way.
Oh, you're so
Carter
welcome.
Malone
It was
a
an
sponsor,
honor.
and it was every time someone sponsors, that's going directly into the services, and it's really meaningful for us.
Well, let me just say, everywhere I go, I talk about the Tennessee Innocence Project. Last night at an event, when I talked about the Carter Malone Group, and I talked about there are clients that I work with that I feel passionate about. The Tennessee Innocence Project is one. The Women's Foundation is one. And so I talk just about the culture of the business. But anyway, I digress. But we love working with the Tennessee Innocence Project. But I want people to know, though, that the work is expensive, that you don't get, funding from the state of Tennessee. I mean, you have to raise money to support this work.
We do. And we do get funding from the Department of Justice, which is great. Mm-hmm. But most of our funding comes from foundations, and it comes from Tennesseans. And we are essentially a nonprofit law firm. None of our attorneys are making anything like what they would make in the private market.
Because they make a great deal of money in the private sector.
And they're happy. I wouldn't say they're happy to do it. They're willing to do it because they believe in the mission. And we have an incredible staff. Attorneys, non-attorneys, everybody does a wonderful job. So we're really grateful. But yes, you're right. It is not... you have to pay for investigation. You have to pay for doctors to serve as witnesses. You have to pay for eyewitness identification experts, false confession experts. So there's a wide array of costs that really come in helping a single person.
Well, the fundraiser last week in Nashville was so meaningful because you had an opportunity to see a lot of the exonerees and learn about them and their families. It was so good to see Miss Joyce. That was my second time seeing her. But the story is on your website that 60 Minutes did on the Tennessee Innocence Project and specifically highlighted Miss Joyce and her fiance at the time, right?
Yep.
And Jessica, just tell a little bit about their story.
So Joyce and Charlie were arrested for a 1988 sexual assault and homicide of her young niece, you know, Joyce only had the child in her company for about 8 to 10 hours before she took her to the hospital. She was just the last one with the child. And so there were conclusions reached that Joyce had injured the child, or that Charlie with Joyce had injured the child. And that was simply not true. Yeah. The injuries occurred before they had custody of the child. Joyce and Charlie, they retained attorneys, and their attorneys did the best they can, but there was faulty testimony by a medical examiner, and that's the testimony that landed them in prison. Joyce is, she was selected by the Titans as an NFL changemaker last year. She got to go to the Super Bowl.
And I loved her outfit.
I know. She made that, of course.
I love it.
But she's such a tribute to the human spirit. Not many people could go through what Joyce went through and come out being the person that they are, willing to tell their story, willing to educate, and also just having such a great, and I think her religious faith, she would tell you, plays a huge role in that for her. Charlie's story is just heart-wrenching. He'd made parole around the same time that Joyce did, but he died of cancer before he was actually released from prison. So he didn't witness his sons grow up. He didn't, there was so much that he just didn't get to take a part of. And Jason Gishner in our office, he represented them as the lead counsel and did just a really great job of proving how the medical evidence that they believed in 1988 was totally inaccurate. Yeah. And then he put on the proof that the judge needed to hear in order to find that they were actually innocent.
Is it hard, Jessica, for you and your team to get a judge to hear those cases? How hard is it?
It's difficult.
Okay.
It depends, candidly, it depends on the jurisdiction. It oftentimes depends on, anytime we get a case, we're going to work it up. We're very selective. It's really important to us that we take cases where people are actually innocent, meaning they did not commit the crime. But we're going to work up this case. We're going to spend months, maybe 9, 10, 12 months, just, investigating and making sure when we put our names on this case, this is a person who's actually innocent. But usually before we file anything, we're going to go to the district attorney's office in any jurisdiction and say, hey, we've got this case. We want to preview it for you. We want you to know what we're working on. And do you want to work with us on it? Now, sometimes the response is yeah. Sometimes the response is, that's good you're doing that, but we're not interested. And then, so it varies. But it's difficult. It's easier if you can get the district attorney to work with you and get back into court. So we always love collaborative relationships.
Good. So Wayne, I want to talk a little bit about Wayne. It was so good to see the video about him and his story and his son. Yeah. So when he went away, his son was a baby, right?
His son, I believe, was like 6 at the time.
6 years old. Okay. Yeah. And he's grown up to into a fine young man.
He is. Went to college, got a degree.
Yes.
Just the most polite, loveliest person.
And it just seems like Wayne was in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? Tell us a little bit about Wayne's story.
Wayne's case is out of Giles County, so that's Pulaski, Tennessee.
Oh, we know what was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee, the Klan.
The Klan was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee. Yeah. And up until a few years ago, there's case law about how the jury deliberation room was decorated by the Daughters of the Confederacy with Confederate memorabilia. And this is up until just a few years ago that this changed and the jury room has been changed. So Wayne was convicted after a jury trial down there. And again, he was convicted based on false medical testimony. In Joyce's case, the medical examiner was Greta Harlan. In this case, it was Charles Harlan. They were a married team of medical examiners, although I don't know if they were married at the time that Wayne's case occurred. But Charles Harlan was the medical examiner who, there's a long trail of misconduct by Dr. Harlan at this point. But Wayne's girlfriend had a toddler child, and the child began to experience some distress when they were spending the evening, at her apartment. And Wayne said, I think you need to take this child to the hospital. And so she did, but it was too late. The child actually ended up passing away within, a short amount of time of being at the hospital. The diagnosis was that the child had a liver laceration, and that's what ended the death, and that it would have occurred. This is the really important thing in both Joyce and Charlie and Wayne's case. The testimony was this laceration would have occurred within 15 to 30 minutes of the child coming to the hospital, and that is medically impossible. So went into court, took the proof. This was a contested hearing, had some incredible medical doctors as experts, and it was pretty clear Wayne did not do this, nor was this part of Wayne's character. Wayne also, like Joyce, has a very strong religious base of who he is as a person and a strong moral compass. No one thought this happened. And it turns out the injury would have occurred long before Wayne was around the child.
It's just so sad just to think about these cases. So now, but walk us through the process. If there's someone who is in jail and they are wrongfully convicted, what is the process for them to fill out an application? The team reviews it. Walk us through that process, Jessica.
So the first part of our application is online.
Okay.
And if anybody knows someone who's been wrongfully convicted, we love it when the person that's been convicted fills it out, but mom, grandma, dad, brother, sister, any of them can send in the first part of the application on behalf of the individual. We're going to take that and vet it and see if this is someone who's eligible for services. So unfortunately, we don't take self-defense cases. We don't take low-level cases at this point in time, which would be like misdemeanors or shoplifting. And then we're going to do another application with them, and we're going to be communicating with the person who's the applicant. So they're often incarcerated. And we're just going to ask questions and get more information about the case. And then from there, we do high-level records collection. Then we really start to kind of narrow in on the issues. We're looking for the red flags of wrongful convictions. And once we feel pretty good about where we are, then we're going to have a meeting with the person and hear more about their story.
Okay. And so, and some of these cases, like Miss Joyce's case, how long did you all work that case?
So Joyce's case is a testament to what happens when you can work collaboratively.
Okay.
So I don't know if hopefully people in Memphis are aware, but there's something called a conviction review unit.
We just started one in Memphis, right? Maybe about a year ago, if that long?
Yeah. Exactly. I think it launched December 1st.
Okay.
And for folks who don't know, a conviction review unit is a unit at the district attorney's office that will investigate and look at the case from their perspective, really asking the question, did we get this right? Let's review this conviction and make sure it has integrity. Sometimes they're called conviction integrity units. And so Joyce's case went pretty quickly because we worked that with the Nashville conviction review unit. Okay. And so even though, we might go out and get our own experts and we're doing our independent investigation, we're putting it on their radar and they're working it too. And so when you work it from both sides, you're really able to get to the truth of the matter.
Okay. Was that the same with Claude's case?
Claude's case was also a conviction review unit case.
Okay.
Same thing
with Wayne?
Wayne was not. Wayne was a contested hearing. Now, as I mentioned, we always attempt to collaborate if it's the other party's interested. But it was a contested hearing where the state was saying, we don't think he's innocent. We don't think he's entitled to relief.
Okay. And so, Jessica, there are some clients, though, that before TIP was started, you started working on and working with. Which client was that?
I'm laughing because everybody has heard about this client so many times. That was Thomas Clardy.
Yeah.
And he was released from prison October 20th, which was really exciting. And he is part of the reason for my involvement in this. He and other clients who I was appointed as an attorney, and I didn't have the resources to do everything I needed to do for him. But believed he was innocent, believed that he needed relief. So he's still going through appeal, but that's a case that we're going on a little over 9 years now.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's a level of dedication. That speaks to you. That speaks to your character. That speaks for you wanting to do the right thing specifically in your profession, because a lot of people wouldn't do what you're doing, right? That speaks volumes about you. You don't have to say anything, but I'm just saying it. It speaks volumes about you.
Well, thank you. I mean, we've also gotten into our fair share of when you spend 9 years with somebody, and clients can be frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Think about the situation they're in.
Right.
And there are long periods of waiting in these cases that have nothing to do with the client, nothing to do with the attorney. It's just the nature of how these cases work. So, but yeah, I mean, to see him out
makes you feel good.
It's the best.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know. So what's on the horizon for the future?
I mean, where do I even start? I'm really excited about what we're seeing in Memphis. I'm excited about the willingness of the district attorney's office to not say every conviction is wrong, but to say we're going to look at these convictions, because the things that we see in Memphis are very unique from other counties. Yeah. And as I was explaining to somebody, here in Memphis, we do have a higher volume of criminal cases that go through the system. So going back to your question, okay, how many people are wrongfully convicted? If it's 1% or 3%, and let's say you're in a jurisdiction that has 10,000 cases, you're going to have less wrongful convictions, right? Right. But if you have 100,000 cases, of course you're going to have more wrongful convictions. So I think what's on the future for us is continuing to work individual cases just as we've done, but really focusing on, all right, now that we're showing and telling the stories that wrongful convictions can happen and why they happen, how can we take this information that we're learning and use it preventatively?
Good.
Right? How do we keep people from being wrongfully convicted? Right. What can law enforcement do to prevent a wrongful conviction? How can we all work together? And that's what I think is really going to be the next kind of priority, next phase for the Tennessee Innocence Project.
Okay, looking at what partnerships might be able to exist when it comes to prevention, I think that's important.
It's really important. And in states like Illinois and some other places where they've had wrongful convictions, work going on much further, in Texas, which we think of as a very conservative state, they have an incredible forensic science commission that reviews, as a neutral party, forensic science that is used in court. And so they're looking at cases to make sure that they got it right when it comes to science. In Illinois, they have exonerees who do training with different law enforcement agencies, right? No one, I find it very hard to believe that anyone would want an innocent person to be in prison.
Right. I mean, it's very expensive, right, for somebody to be in prison. And then they just lose so much of their lives, right? When there's an opportunity for them to be out and being with their family and being a, productive citizen in our society.
Well, and if the wrong person is locked up,
where's the criminal? The person who did the
exactly.
They're still out somewhere.
Is our community any safer?
No.
Is the victim any better served?
Not at all.
And so, I think there are partnerships all the way around that can allow us to make sure we get it right and that people are not losing years to wrongful convictions.
Just because some of those best practices in those other states, are there opportunities for those to be here in Tennessee?
Oh, yeah.
If we can get the right elected official to carry it at the state level? Because I'm sure some would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think we're just getting there, right? We're
okay.
5 years in, so
right.
I'm trying to really temper where we are. I want to see us have some more stories most of our cases have involved science.
Okay.
But I think there's room for collaboration and learning. Don't you, amongst different partners?
Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is you have staff here in Memphis, you have staff in Nashville. Are they dividing up the cases and working on the Nashville team working on the Nashville cases, or is it still in Memphis team working on Memphis cases, or is it still collaboration going on with the team?
We still have all the collaboration. So everyone on our team adds a really good, different dynamic.
Okay.
Not everybody thinks about cases the way I think about cases, and I don't think about cases the way that Katie or Jason think about cases.
Because I've heard you and Jason. Yeah. You all can go back and forth.
Yeah. And then there's accusations of, you tend to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, or, you think everyone did it. But no, I mean, it's really important for us to collaborate. So while for the most part, our employees in Memphis are focused on Memphis cases because we are, although new, we have 2 people who moved from Nashville to Memphis.
Okay. Wonderful.
We are part of the community, and we want to continue to be part of the community. So it's important for us to work our cases, but there's still, we had a legal team meeting yesterday that 2 hours is where I kind of have to cut it off. But we're also working on the cases, and we're all involved, and we're all cheering for each other's clients.
That's wonderful. I want, we have about 3 minutes left, and I want to spend some time really talking about why it's important for people to understand the work that you're doing and why it's so important. Because I always think about, it could be somebody in my family. It could easily be someone in my family that's caught up and wrongly convicted. And so for those that are serving time, that are there, that shouldn't be there, that, half of their life
right,
is spent locked up for something that they didn't do. I can't even imagine, but it is, the work that you're doing is so important. So we want to make sure that people, if they want to reach out to you to make a donation to support the work, what do they need to do?
Just go to our website. It's so easy. It's tninnocence.org, and you can make a donation. I mean, some of the really simple things, though, that people can do to support our work, especially at this juncture, follow us on social media. Mm-hmm. Usually someone's part of LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook. Follow us on social media and share that you've read our message, you've read our mission, and that you want other people to know. That's like a very easy way, right? Obviously, donations are always encouraged, and I think you go to our website, you look in the upper right-hand corner, and there it is. But you can read about our clients. You can read about other news, other accomplishments we've had, and hopefully feel connected to the work, because none of this happens without the support of people who, they're not going to darken the door of a courtroom.
Right.
They're not going to know, what it feels like to go into a prison and be searched. But they make what we do possible. And
Jessica, they can also, because TIP is a 501c3.
Correct.
So, we're in November, December. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do, who you're going to give to, what organizations you're going to give to at the end of the year to make sure you're ready for your taxes. Remember the Tennessee Innocence Project, because the work that you're doing is absolutely incredible. You do have a board, though.
We have a board. I think there's other ways that are sort of non-traditional. We would love to have people who are interested in joining the board.
Absolutely.
In Memphis specifically, we want to build up our Memphis. And also people have unique talents. Maybe they're really great. Maybe they have a paralegal background and they're retired. Maybe they have experience and they just want to do some photography of clients. There's a whole variety of things. But if there's something that they're interested, they should go to our website. Our email is on there, and send us an email. Let us know how you think you could contribute. And if we don't have a need right now, we have a list. We just keep a running list. So when we need something, we can go to it.
So volunteers, you need volunteers sometimes, paralegals, right? Photography. and those types of things. But do you ever have any law students that want to come in and work with you?
We do. Yeah, we work
That's
with,
good.
we have a law student now in an externship. But yeah, we work with law students at the University of Memphis, Cecil C. Humphreys School of Law. And we have law students in Nashville from Belmont, Nashville School of Law, Vanderbilt. It's really important that even if they only spend a summer with us, that's hopefully an experience that they'll take with them in their law career wherever they go.
That's amazing. Jessica Van Dyke, Executive Director and a lead counsel for the Tennessee Innocence Project. Thank you so much for being on Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you for having me.
And you're going to come back really soon and talk about another case.
We'll have more to talk about.
Absolutely excited about it. Thanks so much.
Thank
and
you.
thank everybody for watching.